Animals, predominantly mammals, obviously have emotions. However, they are usually rather bad at emoting. Emoting means communicating emotions to fellow members of the species. Humans are very good at emoting. They have developed sophisticated facial movements to signal emotions to other members of the species. Usually, animals only have one mode of communication, which consists of attack or non-attack. Emoting adds another, more complex mode of communication, but is still far removed from a modern mode called language. Nonetheless, emotive communication is another foundation of our modern civilized lives, and it is fully genetically encoded, while language largely isn't. Emotions most likely evolved to facilitate low-intensity rank conflict and are also a form of survival anticipation, similar to dreams, anxiety, teaching, and playing. Language is partly genetically encoded, but represents our point of departure from the animal kingdom. When we stopped evolving like regular beings, and how we like to say, became the makers of our own destiny. The I in I am the maker of my own destiny refers to the thinking self. The thinking self is nothing more than internalized language with which we strongly personally identify. Language evolved out of emoting and represents the third mode of communication besides physical aggression and emoting. Conflicts can further be depersonalized, abstracted, and de-escalated through language. Language provides another buffer zone between conflict and physical altercation. Initially, the goal of language is to increase internal group coherence. Somewhere in the above paragraph is implied the seemingly magical but highly significant transformation from genes to ideas through language. This transcendence from instinctual being to meaningful concepts has always bugged and fascinated me at the same time. We know that the building blocks of language are genetically encoded, but the specific language we speak is learned through culture. So where does this non-genetic part of language come from? You could say that part is not based on genes, but on ideas, with ideas being the substitute for genes. But ideas can only be authored in language, right? So how could ideas be the code for language if ideas require language as a code to begin with? Maybe language started out as purely genetic: attack him, let's make peace, come with me, go see. But then eventually, ideas authored in language became the code for language, instead of the language being the code for the ideas. Somewhere along the language development process, ideas became a thing of their own, separate from genes. What should also be considered is that language does not really have a code, as it is the code itself, just like genes don't have a code. They are the code. Language is self-containing. At such a weird intersection, I suspect psychedelics might have played a role in our human development. You could say that language gave us our logical minds and the ideas within it. For example, our minds can logically conclude that associating with the biggest society gives us the greatest chances of individual survival. It puts us in the protection of the biggest army. Our genes can also recognize this, but at a much slower pace. The mind is an extension of the gene surviving, but it can, surprisingly, A, suppress gene survival, for example, suicide, childlessness, or monkhood, and B, create its own type genes called ideas. Ideas can be transported through thousands of generations, maintaining their original meaning because of the survival value they provide. This is a form of natural selection. When our minds conclude that bigger armies increase the chance of our survival before our genes do, our minds become a crutch for genetic evolution. This crutch eventually becomes its own master. Ideas are selected based on the individual and civilizational survival they provide. These new beings are actualized and systematized through religion. Religion turns ideas from being a crutch for genetic survival to being its own kind of survival. Chapter 6.4.4 Implications of Tribalism and Ideas. We are permanently oscillating between the interests of our genes, the interests of our society, and the interests of our ideas. Genes survive by means of society, that is cost-benefit analysis, but genes can only survive through society with the bridge of ideas. However, ideas also seek survival interests of their own through individuals, that would be the self, and society, which would be tradition. Gene survival through society, and especially idea survival through society, makes those social systems act more like a single entity, similar to how the cells in our body act as a single entity. When this happens, the importance of the individual members of the society is diminished, and the collective survival as a people becomes of greater importance. That is the "and" principle. Collectivized societies, and principle, may act more like a single male, that is supermale, providing for and protecting a single female, that is superfemale. That's when they say, our men are fighting for us, or our women have been taken. When the supermale wins against another supermale, it takes the superfemale of the other supermale. This means that if we beat the enemy army, we go to their lair and take their women. The male sexual competition that has been purposefully suppressed within one supermale is now replaced by the fights between supermales. Society survival hinges on the number of females in that society. The number of females is a limiting factor in the survival of the society. When the army loses 70% of its men but wins the war, this means they can double their army size in the next generation. This is because they have left their women at home and taken the women of the enemy army home as well. The few men left can fertilize all those females. This becomes another factor that elevates the status of females and makes them more valuable in the eyes of society. Self, which equals the accumulation of the ideas that make up one's conscious identity, self-survival hinges on the stickiness of ideas. Ideas are notoriously fleeting and therefore have a hard time building any sort of basis for multi-generational survival, let alone survival in someone's head for an extended period of time. The best surviving ideas are belief systems, complex webs of interrelated ideas that do a particularly good job of maintaining their structure. Belief systems that are self-reaffirming work the best. They gain strength when being supported by others as well as when they are being attacked by others. Religions are the highest crystallization of self-reaffirming belief systems, which optimally also should provide gene survival and society survival. The self itself is the strongest and most fundamental belief system of all belief systems. It is the belief that there is a thinker of thoughts and a doer of deeds. Overall, it is fair to say that ideas and genes partake in some sort of symbiosis.